Hi, I'm Fred Sauer. I'm a developer advocate, and I'm here today with three guys with an idea, and they'd like to share this idea with you and talk a little bit about their application. Maybe you guys can introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Vikram.
I'm Ming.
I'm Naveen.
And we are from Socialwok.
Can you guys maybe talk about some of your motivations for building Socialwok?
Well, the motivation for building Socialwok really came from the fact that we spend so much time on tools like Facebook, FriendFeed, and that the concept of passive sharing is really great because that helps me communicate with my friends without really emailing anyone. I barely know their emails anymore. And then I'm back at work and I tend to CC people, BCC people. So I thought that's where the idea kind of evolved from. We decided that bringing that kind of passive sharing model to business collaboration would reduce a lot of mails that are floating about inside the organization. And Google Apps seems to be the best cloud platform for businesses. So we decided it's a natural fit to add our passive sharing model, to add Socialwok directly into Google Apps.
Okay. Can you maybe talk about some of the other enablers you mentioned? Google Apps. What is it that allowed you to kind of build this platform out and bring this idea to fruition?
Well, it all starts with Google App Engine. Basically, with Google App Engine, we don't have to think about how we're going to scale our application. We don't have to build. We don't have to own a farm of servers in a data center. We basically just develop, deploy, and almost forget about it. And all we have to do is worry about developing our app the best we can and making sure that it's working on that side. From there, we basically we moved to the front end, which is GWT. And the cool thing about GWT is that it's also in Java. We're using App Engine with the Java language support. And for us, basically, we're developing now end-to-end in the Java programming language. So we really are more efficient. We don't have to think about how we switch between different languages. It makes it very, very efficient for us to develop new features. And then from there, we're using the Google Data APIs, which allow us to integrate pretty deeply into Google Apps. And so the Google Data APIs basically are a great set of tools that allow us to sort of fit into Google Apps and make our application more like a Google app.
And I just want to add that actually using Google App Engine Java, using GWT, and Google Data APIs enable us to create a very full-blown enterprise-grade App Engine Java application, right, with very low cost.
Why did you choose to integrate so tightly with Google Apps? Was it the APIs or what else was of interest to you?
I think the key point with Google Apps is, as Vikram has mentioned, right, in this world right now, we see that Google Apps is one of the foremost growing online cloud-based office productivity tools, right? A lot of people are starting to switch towards that direction, right? Especially small, medium businesses. And that is what Socialwok is trying to target, right? So we have these people using all these online tools, so we have basically put a social layer on top, and it's all powered by the cloud, right? From using Google tools, App Engine Java and GWT, the whole works, the whole stack.
It just made sense. It was almost a no-brainer to choose Google Apps as our distribution.
Was the same true for Google Web Toolkit and App Engine? Had you started with those tools from the beginning, or did you experiment in other places and change your mind later down the road?
I mean, when we started, of course, we started playing around with standard Java, Java Enterprise Stack, standard J2E stuff, and we basically started developing from there. And then we saw that, this Google App Engine, we've heard about it before, but it was all Python code. But then they said, we're announcing Java language support. So we thought, why not actually do this? Let's not worry about having to find a bunch of servers. Let's actually, make our app work on Google App Engine. So from that discussion, it was pretty easy for us to move our app to Google App Engine. And then with GWT, we had already started writing an interface that was based with HTML, JavaScript. We used the Dojo toolkit initially, and it worked well, but we ran into some issues, basically with speed and performance of our application. And since we want to integrate more with Google, we feel that performance is key. So one of the things that we decided to do was look at Google Web Toolkit because we heard great stories about how the performance was very good. So we used that to actually, we started to redevelop in that. And for us, it was a little awkward at first because you're not used to writing interfaces in Java, especially web interfaces. But once we kind of got into it, we were able to develop, and we became much more efficient as the process went on.
I'd like to add that the biggest problem we had using Dojo or any of the other toolkits was browser compatibility. So we spent a significant amount of time trying to get it to work on other older browsers. So, and we decided it wasn't worth our time. It was a distraction, and GWT just allowed us to work on everything from an iPhone to IE8 to Chrome, Safari WebKit. It was amazing. So that actually saved us a ton of time.
Yeah. So that sounds pretty interesting. What would you say is the most compelling feature you were able to build out because you were on Google Web and App Engine and didn't have to spend your time building servers or wrangling cross-browser issues? What did you use that time for, and do you have maybe a story for us?
Sure. So I think one of the most compelling things for us is actually, you can see, right, we have a whole feed-based service. So you can see all these things where the feeds are, but the most exciting part is we went from web to mobile web, right? We have it on iPhone and the Android, and we were able to do all of these very, very quickly with very minimal cost. I think that's a big win for developers, right? The ability to create a web service that is highly scalable, redundant, and more importantly, you can port to other platforms very quickly and deal with all the browsing compatibility issues that what Vikram has mentioned. So that is, I would say, one of the very important values for us, using GWT.
That's very cool.
Our applications actually also have that rock-solid feel of the web interface that's kind of important today. That a lot of Google applications like Reader and a few of the other ones actually, impart. You feel like this is a solid product that you're dealing with. So GWT kind of naturally brings your product up to that level.
Okay. Would you have any advice to share with other developers that might be looking to build an application maybe on a similar stack, or have other ideas that they'd like to implement?
I think the most important thing is that you should check out code.google.com, right? All the projects are there, and also Google has been very friendly in the sense that there are IRC chats, and some of the times we hooked up with some of the developers from the IRC channels. So I highly encourage people to join some of the impromptu IRC chats that are from the App Engine team, right, where developer members like Jason Cooper, Max Ross, and the other guys are on. So that's a very good place. And also your code.google.com also has forums where developers have posted questions. So we have done that too.
So you really took advantage of the community and were able to collaborate with others.
Yeah, I think that's very important, and I think we also looked at other implementation from other companies, and we find that Google is the most, in our view, the most developer friendly, right? From an open source perspective, as well as answering questions and having a whole knowledge base for developers to actually look into.
One of the most important things as developers getting to a platform is to make sure that we don't spend a considerable amount of time just on searching for answers. You know where to find them. There should be proper documentation, and most of the tools, all the tools in fact we work with, including the Data API, GWT, App Engine, Java, was documented, and the documentation was improving. So that actually helped us to we didn't have to go and search obscure forums for information. It was all in one place, and it gave us a lot of speed.
And I guess the final piece of advice that we give to any developers is just dive in. Google doesn't bar you from anything. App Engine has free quotas that let you get started. You can easily just write your first app, deploy it, and actually just get started. And once you dive in, then it becomes really easy to sort of push ahead and actually innovate much more.
Just to add to the community angle of what Fred mentioned, right? Also, as for us, we are from Singapore. We actually helped set up the Singapore GTUG, the GTAC. And around the world, there's many GTACs, right? And we found that when we hosted the first GTAC for Singapore on App Engine and GWT, we had like 150 people showed up. Wow. And they gave us a lot of feedback. So I highly encourage developers, right? If you are in wherever you are, Moscow, Tokyo, China, I understand there are GTACs in all these places. You should go talk to other developers, and also more importantly, do something first, and then show it to other people and get feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to add to the advantages of App Engine, something that just occurred to me was the fact that this is advice I give a lot of developers. Don't spend time being system administrators. I know it's fun to roll your own stuff, but it doesn't always work in production, or you spend a lot of time doing stuff that as a developer you should not maybe be looking at. So App Engine, as opposed to a lot of other app platforms, lets you be a developer and not a system administrator. So so you can actually have a code deployed and running from the second you get on it. So that's really cool.
That's great. So do you have maybe any parting advice for Google? What is it that we can do to better help developers like you make you more productive?
I think from our perspective, the only challenge we had was the roadmap. It would be great if we could get more visibility from Google regarding the features launch, and also I think the IRC channels are a good start to get real-life interaction, but more visibility would be great.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming and sharing your idea with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.